Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever and however you're listening to the podcast. We appreciate that you are. This is the Delaware High School Football Pod presented by Websites for Sports, and we're the only media outlet dedicated exclusively to high school football in the first state. Pod is available wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts and also on YouTube for those who prefer to see what you're listening to. Follow us on X at DELHS Football and on Facebook at the DELHS Football Pod. On today's show, the big story of Week 2. And there's several close games we will recap with storyline, stats, and more. Our rapid rundown of every other game that we could find information on. We'll hand out several helmet stickers and a t-shirt to our Promotion Zone Player of the Week. We preview next week's biggest games and who is streaming what and where. And of course, we'll have our weekly trivia questions. The title sponsor of the Delaware High School Football Pod is Websites for Sports, created and managed by Brian Rutter, and it's the only place you can find the schedule, rosters, and sometimes stats, if coaches post them, of every high school team in Delaware. I've used the site consistently for years as my boys have gone through high school playing sports. My favorite feature, I always say it, you can personalize schedule alerts to your needs. Bottom line, if you have a child playing middle or high school sports, or even if you're just a fan, it's the one and only website that provides accurate and up-to-date schedules, and they do it all for free. We can't thank Brian Rutter of Websites for Sports enough for what he does for interscholastic sports, and of course, their sponsorship of this podcast. It's just another way they're supporting interscholastic athletics. That's websites, the number 4, sports.com. All right, Marty, really the big story of the week is we have 4 games we're going to talk about, which is more than we've had the past couple weeks. Games that are close. Games that are in-state related completely, as we still have some schools playing out-of-state schools. And again, our purpose is to, give listeners the biggest bang for their buck when they're listening. And so we usually don't touch on teams when they're playing out-of-state teams. We will in the random rundown, but not on our recaps. We're going to start down at Lake Forest, where Lake hosts Cape Henlopen. So it's 2A versus 1A. And Lake comes away with a 35-14 win. Cape had come in with 2 easy wins, one over St. Mark's, a Class 2A team, and one over William Penn, a team that's in that bottom third of what we call our, magic number in 3A in particular. Lake had just 1 game under their belt, and that was a relatively easy win against North Carolina, so we're not sure how good they are. Cape had won this matchup the last 2 years, but last year it was just 34-32, and Lake led at halftime. I remember watching that game thinking, this could be one of the biggest upsets of the year. Because remember, this was a Cape Henlopen team coming off a state championship.
That's right.
State championship game appearance, I should say. Yeah. So it had 2 very good veteran quarterbacks, Cape Jr. Jamison Tingle, who we like a lot, could be the potential player of the year, if not this year, next year, and Lake Senior Jack Parson, who's been a 3-year starter for Lake. And, 2 excellent coaches, former college coach and Chip Knapp and Freddie Johnson. Freddie's been around forever. Every year I think he might step down. He's still coming back. He's the athletic director at Lake, and he's just one of those, hometown fixtures at Lake Forest. And so just a great game, a huge win for Lake Forest to beat Cape.
It was, yeah. I watched this game. Lake Forest got off to a great start. They go up 13-0. The defense is playing phenomenally. And then before you can blink, it's 14-13 Cape Henlopen, and you start to think, oh, okay, this is going to go the way it usually goes. We have a 3A power against a strong 2A team that we don't know too much about. And I will say Josh Webb, the defensive coordinator, is a great friend of the show. He texted me during the summer and said, watch out for this team. He said, we are going to be better than a lot of people think. They scrimmaged 3 3A teams at the beginning of this season. And according to him, they held their own in all 3 of those games. It's clear to see why now. They're loaded. I mean, the Jack Parson, the senior quarterback, 5 carries for 157 yards and 2 touchdowns. They scored late to put this thing away. It was 21-14. And then they get a touchdown with about 4 minutes left on a 73-yard touchdown run from Parson, which really kind of sealed it. A.J. White scored with about a minute left to put the finishing touches on it, but that Parson run was just the dagger to Cape Henlopen. Cape Henlopen looked great so far this season, and there was no reason to think that they wouldn't win again. Again, it was very close last season. But it is 3A and 2A, and Cape is a strong program. Chip Knapp at the helm of Cape now, and yeah, Freddie Johnson's kids just didn't quit. Defensively, they were phenomenal. It looked like Cape would break some every now and all of a sudden the gaps would close up. So I give a lot of credit to the defense. They got interceptions from AJ White and Lemire Wright. They both had interceptions. AJ White also had a really good game on the ground. I believe 13 carries, 88 yards, 2 touchdowns. Isaiah Wright, 9 carries, 124 yards. Lake, this is crazy. Lake ran for 416 yards in this game.
Oh,
when was the last time Cape Henlopen or any 3A team gave up that many yards on the ground
to a 2A team?
Exactly. Yeah. Now, Brad's article in the News Journal says that they didn't complete a pass. The official stats say they were 1 of 2 for 12 yards. So either way, there was no passing game to speak of. Jack Parson didn't need to. It was when he's finding these openings on the ground for 157 yards on 5 carries. So a phenomenal win for Lake Forest, and they're in a position to do a lot of damage in 2A right now. This 2A race is so exciting. And by the way, Cape, that huge win they had over St. Mark's, and we'll talk about St. Mark's later, but that win now for Lake looks even better because St. Mark's pulled off an upset yesterday over Archmere. So they're maybe a little stronger than we thought. So that Cape 30-point win over them makes this Lake win over Cape look even stronger. I know I heard you on the Benny Mitchell's show with you're not into the whole A beats B, so B is obviously going to beat C. I'm not either, but in this case, it might provide a little perspective for how good Lake really is right now.
Little ego blast here. I only got one pick wrong of those.
That's right.
On the Benny Mitchell show. I picked Wilmington Friends to beat Delmar. All right, but Lake Forest, 13 seniors on their 39-player roster, so a decent-sized roster for a 2A team as well. Yep. I read it was Andy Walter's article in the Del State News that they had this is in the off-season, 45 to 50 players lifting in the off-season. And Marty, when I say lifting, I don't mean roll into after school to throw a few weights around. 6 a.m. in the morning. So that means your alarm's going off at 5. It's not, you don't get up at 10 of 6 and roll to the weight room and then go to school. So, that tells you how committed these players are to play for Freddie Johnson, and that's where it all starts. All right, Newark Charter School and Tatnall. Jody Russell going home to Tatnall or I shouldn't say home, going back to Tatnall. He's a Newark guy. Back to Tatnall where he coached for 15 years as the head coach. Up in Greenville, they come away with a 22-21 win in overtime. And it was just, the Patriots were coming off their first varsity loss, which was to Odessa, in a game that they were in control of until 2 special teams mistakes. So you could argue that they could have had a win against a 2A team coming in. They didn't. And I was very interested to see how they would react because this is a program in its first varsity year. Last year, they lost 1 JV game to Hodson, who you would think a 1A versus a 3A JV team, you're going to lose. And the game was sort of close. I can't remember the exact score, and it doesn't matter. So I was interested to see how they would react. Tatnall was coming off a loss to Sussex Tech in their opener. And, you don't want to lose a 1A game when you've already lost a 2A game to go to 0-2. And so, and ironically, Marty, it was another punt block return for a touchdown that almost cost the Patriots. And when I say almost, that's exactly what I mean because they pulled it off in overtime.
Yeah, this was exciting. When first time I checked, it was Tatnall 14-0. I thought, okay, maybe some things are getting restored here. Newark Charter is going to be that 1A team that looked good at first, but still they don't have all the football players they need. They got a lot of great athletes. And then all of a sudden they start to come back. And then I believe it was less than 2 minutes left when they got the touchdown and the tying 2-point conversion. And then it was a blocked field goal early in the game, which was returned for a touchdown, which is why Jody Russell said, I'm not kicking the extra point. They already saw what I believe they missed an extra point and had one blocked for a touchdown, returned for a touchdown. So they go for 2. Chase Kennedy had said in the newspaper, I knew at that point we had to go for 2, and they did it. They got it. It's a gutsy call. I love it. And Jody Russell and his guys, what a start for them. 2-1 now. But some exciting wins and some unexpected wins. This one, again, for the people there, I'm sure this was one of those This is so bizarre, and Sean Green actually put something about this in his article too. The temporary lights thing is brutal.
Hmm.
I saw the highlights of this game, and it looked like when you're playing basketball back in high school, and you use the headlights from the cars to illuminate the court. That was basically the quality of the lighting there, and that's not any fault of Tatnall. It's just
No,
I agree with Sean. Sean was like, "Hey, if you want to use lights, get real
get them
lights."
right.
And trust me, Tatnall can afford
I
lights.
would think so.
Um, so anyway, it was a Friday night game, and Newark Char. I'm so impressed right now with them with this start. It's you have these young kids. They come off a tough loss to Odessa, and you think, oh, okay, let's see how these kids are going to respond. Tatnall goes up 14-0, and the kids never quit, and I just love that. Not a terrible loss for Tatnall. They fought hard. Again, they lost a lot. Their starting quarterback from last year, the All-Stater, will be starting for Caesar Rodney this coming week. So a lot of things that changed for Tatnall from last year, but for Newark Charter, a great win to move to 2-1.
Yeah, Jody Russell told me after the game, he said that was a special one. And, I think it was special because it was Tatnall, but I think it was also special because he realizes what that momentum can do for his
Yep.
program going forward. As for the light situation, I'd be all for the DIAA staying. If you don't have permanent lights, you're not playing night games under the lights.
Yes.
I've seen them at Christiana did it last year. William Penn has done it over the years. Different schools have done it over the years. And, everybody complains as soon as a punt goes above the light level, you can't see it. And,
No.
it's just not, you can't tell me it's the same as having regulation lights. And especially for these schools that are used to playing with real lights.
Yep.
It's a big difference playing in the dark if you don't have the real lights, so to speak.
Oh yeah,
So,
Newark Charter opens their season under those magnificent lights at their
right.
stadium, and then they're playing under these lights that look like they're about 10
Yeah.
feet off the
Yeah.
ground. And yeah, so
Your
I
description
get
was
what you're saying.
perfect. Let's pull some more cars up to the fence.
There you go.
All right, so Tatnall starts out 0-2 in their 2A debut this year. They're going to host Odessa. The Ducks are 2-1. They beat a Glasgow team that's struggling, but a Glasgow team
Yep.
we'll talk more about in the random rundown. They're finally done playing 2A teams, which is good. Newark Charter School's 2-1. They're at Newark High School. I'll talk more about them in my games to watch. And there could be as many fans there as there've been since the Butch Simpson era. That's how big that game could be for both schools. At least I'm hoping it is.
Yep.
All right, you might know Andre Smith of Andre L Photography from the sidelines, capturing Friday Night Lights and the game's biggest moments. But what he and his wife love most is creating portraits that go beyond the field, not just in sports. Their award-winning sessions are designed to capture people in their true authenticity. For seniors, that means telling the story of this milestone year. For women and businesses, it's about a transformative experience that celebrates and elevates you. Whether it's senior portraits, personal branding, or the photo shoot you've always dreamed of, they are holding space for you. Get started with your session today at andreelphotography.com. That's Andre, E-L, photography.com. He's done portraits for several of my boys' teams and them personally. I'd be happy to give you a little bit more information about him off the air if you'd like. All right, let's go to Polytech and Conrad. Very interesting. Another 1A game for Polytech. They're starting out, they got bumped up to 2A. They're starting out by playing the first half of their schedule against 1A teams. They lost a ton of seniors, 22 seniors, I think they lost last year. So,
Yes.
a lot of people would say, hey, you're up playing with the 2A teams. Why are you still playing 1A? And I guess I get it. And I guess we'll find out in the second half of the season whether that was the right move. All of a sudden,
Right.
if the competition changes, do you go 0-5 in the second half of the season and miss the playoffs?
Yep.
Great coach. They have a great coach and Coach Eilers, and I'm sure he knows what he's doing. He understands his program. He's the one that built it after 20 years of not making the playoffs or whatever it was.
Yes.
For Conrad, it's their second game against the 2A opponent playing up. They beat Milford last week in a big game, and hats off to them for there. And so they fell just short of their second straight 2A win when Zane Harris converted a screen pass into an 84-yard touchdown very late in that game. But what a great game between two programs you don't hear a lot about all the time.
No. Conrad made the playoffs for the first time last year and forever. Chet Walters has done a really good job there. They've got a strong roster. They lost some key seniors, but they've replaced them. They look really good. They had that win over Milford to start, as you said. And then, these are two big road trips going to Milford and Polytech in back-to-back weeks. And the kids came off the bus and looked great in both of them. For Polytech, Halim Edwards, the sophomore quarterback who took over as a freshman last year when there was an injury to the starter, 11 of 24, 258 yards, 3 touchdowns. Their running back, Javon Bird, had 7 carries, 39 yards. He had apparently a bunch of yards called back because of holding calls. This was interesting. Conrad took a lead late in the game, just couldn't hold it. Polytech came down the field, put a score on, and then a great defensive stand. I believe there was a fourth and maybe 1 or 2 with just a minute or two left, and Conrad, of course, forced to go for it. Polytech came out with a huge defensive stop. So, not a bad loss for Chet Walters and his crew. Disappointing and certainly a long bus ride home because they played so well, but a lot to build on there. 1-1 against two A teams. And for Polytech, their young roster, this is a big win to build some confidence going into the season, especially for Halim Edwards. He had a really good game throwing the ball, as I said. Junior, I didn't write his last name down, but Zane, 6 catches for 207 yards and 3 touchdowns for Polytech. And I apologize. I don't know why I didn't write down his first name or his last name. I don't know which is which. But anyway, for Polytech, a huge win to build some confidence for their young team.
Yeah, and it was a good experience for Conrad. Does Conrad play under the lights? I know it's right up the street from you.
They do
Marty.
not.
Okay,
they
so
do not.
Good experience. They got to go down and play under the lights. Did they play Milford away? I don't know how that.
They did.
Okay,
they did.
So they played 2 games under the lights. So neat experience for them. It's always fun playing under real lights.
It is. It is.
We're not trying to do away with lights. We're just trying to do away
right.
with the temporary lights. But anyway, so Polytech's going to play their third of 5 straight 1A opponents. They're Dickinson next week. The Rams are 0-3. Their losses have been pretty significantly, most recently to Del Castle. Conrad 1-1. They're going to host Indian River. So it's probably going to be the toughest game of their opening 3. Indian River is 3-0. 2 of their wins were against 2A opponents, which is what they are now, Odessa and Milford, and they blew both of them out. So solid wins for them as well. All right, St. Mark's Archmere. Bill DiNardo's 306th win in his 38-year career, second only to Bob Tattersall, of course. The Auks jump out to a 14-point lead, but St. Mark's tied it up with 2 touchdowns of their own, and then Archmere takes the lead heading into the half. Back and forth second half, tied at 28 with 3:05 left, and Matteo Bracalenti comes in. Marty, I'll let you take it from there.
Yeah, Matteo Bracalenti comes in, and he's one of the best kickers in the state and hits a 40-yarder, which there is a video out there somewhere. I can't remember who posted it, but just beautiful. It would have been good from 50 yards, it looked like to me. He's got a tremendous leg, but to come in under that pressure, and I said this before with Bill DiNardo, I bet he's not had many chances in the Sally's career to rely on a kicker to win things at the end of a game. So this has got to be great. I love how he said, you love having that weapon there, this kid who that I believe they got down to about the 15-yard line or so, but then they got a penalty or 2, got pushed back. So then you're making it a 40-yard field goal, which in high school is an iffy proposition, unless you're a Delaware kicker this year. The Delaware kickers are having an amazing season. I tweeted about yesterday, and Matteo Bracalenti is one of the best in the business here, and he nails it, puts it through, and then St. Mark's with a nice stand. It's funny, Archmere actually converted on 4th, and I think it was 17 or so, to keep the game alive, but there was a flag, and it was ruled that the quarterback had stepped over the line of scrimmage before he made the throw. So it's kind of anticlimactic end there. St. Mark's get a couple knees, and a great win for St. Mark's. This would have been a killer for them with how well they played if they didn't come away with the win here.
Yep.
Brett Green, the quarterback, who I know is enrolled in that Henderson training. Nolan Henderson has said great things about Brett Green. He looked really strong yesterday. It's going to be interesting to see where they go from here, because they're going to make their hay on the ground. St. Mark's. I mean, that's the Bill DiNardo way.
Right.
And I was amazed, frankly, that Archmere, with 2 14-point leads at different times, 14-0 and then 28-14. When it got to be 28-14, I thought, okay, that's it. St. Mark's had put up a fight. It's going to be over. But they kept coming. The running game was great for St. Mark's, and then you set it up for Bracalenti. So this is a huge win for Bill DiNardo and St. Mark's, not just because of the 306 win, which is awesome, but the fact that this young team it gets a win over a very quality 2A opponent.
Yeah, it's it's a win that they needed after starting out 0-2, and I felt the same way about this game as I did about the UD game. Quite frankly, St. Mark's played too well not to win it.
Yep.
And I felt the same about Delaware, that needed the overtime, the play in, the field goal to get it to overtime, and then the quarterback draw basically to win it. And I felt the same. I texted somebody the same thing. I said, this wouldn't have been a bad loss, but it's going to be a great win because
Yep.
of, it would have been a shame if that didn't happen. So St.
And we'll talk
Mark's.
about Archmere.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, real quick, just Archmere. We'll talk about him a little bit. Ryan Hagenberg had an amazing game for Archmere in a losing effort, and we'll talk about him a little bit later.
There's a little teaser for you. St. Mark's goes to William Penn. William Penn started out 0-2. Then they had the week off, so Matt Sabol will have his team ready to play. Archmere hosts DMA. DMA coming off a tough loss to Class 3A Hots, and that would have been a big win from them. More on that in the random rundown. All right, athletes and students of all ages, unleash your potential with the Win the Day Planner, your key to building winning habits for a lifetime. This planner was put together by a longtime wrestling coach and teacher, Dan Rigby, out of Cesar Rodney High School. 2 decades of experience teaching and coaching students of all ages and abilities. The Win the Day Planner is dedicated to helping students, athletes, and coaches reach their full potential. The planner combines essential tools for success, from goal setting and scheduling to mindfulness and habit building. The Win the Day Planner is the ultimate tool for students, athletes, and coaches to track progress, set goals, and achieve greatness, not just in sports, but in their lives as well. It's used by teams at all levels throughout the country, and get this, now it is free to all teams at all levels, youth through college, in the state of Delaware. So if you're coaching a youth team, a middle school team, a high school team, a travel team, a college team, or whatever, you can get this for free. Get your print or digital copy today and check out all the products at winthedayplanner.com. Again, that's winthedayplanner.com, where you can also reach out about getting this great product for free if you are a team in Delaware. All right, it's time for the random rundown. And basically what we've decided to do this year...
Rapid rundown.
Rapid rundown. Sorry, it isn't random. Yeah, R&R. R&R. So what we're going to zip through all the games that we have information on, which is almost 100% this week. And so we're happy, and I appreciate... Yesterday I was texting coaches saying, hey, I don't need yardage. I just need, hey, give me a couple names with, did they have an interception? Did they have a couple touchdowns? That's what we want. We're going to get the kids. We want to get the players' names out there is what we want. And so I appreciate every coach I texted but one got back to me. And it was funny because of all the coaches I texted, and there were probably 8 of them, the one that didn't get back to me is the one that always gets back to me. So I got to find out to make sure that he at least got the text. But anyway, here and there. So we're just going to go back and forth. One time we might jump in and interrupt the other one with some facts or whatever. But just something we're going to do fun. I'll start as Marty. Sure. First State Military Academy got their second win of the season against AI DuPont, 44-6. The Tigers got on the scoreboard. That's the big news for them.
Yes.
Don't know who scored it. Couldn't figure that out, but they got on the scoreboard. They're 0-3. They're heading to Glasgow. So you've got 2 teams. Now, again, Glasgow's 0-3 playing Class 2A teams. So they're a legit team. More on them in a minute. But FSMA, they're going to host Chesapeake High School, again, a team we don't know anything about. So First State Military Academy 44, AI DuPont 6. And I'll preface handing it off to Marty by, if you're a coach and we don't have your cell phone number, please give it to us if you don't mind, because then that's what I would like to do, is send you a quick text on after your game. And I'm not talking about on the bus ride home, although you can do it then. Because, again, I just want to know, give me 3 names or 2 names and something significant about them. You can even say, he was the leader on our defense, and I don't need stats, but we want to get his name out there. Exactly. All right, Marty, you're up.
Yeah, that's the one game we get that out of the way that we didn't have anything for, couldn't find anything. Reached out to FSMA, did not hear back. So maybe we'll be able to post something or have something next week. Yeah, the next one is this was a game we talked about. This was one of my games to watch last week, and more because of where these programs used to be. And right now, Brandywine 44, Newark 6. And Brandywine, a great effort from them. Ian Cleghorn continues to have an amazing season, 22 and 45-yard field goals, converted both his extra points. BJ Grundy had just under 100 yards rushing. Jace Beauparlant, one of the best names in football. I love that. Threw for 180 yards and 2 touchdowns. The D-line kept constant pressure on Newark all afternoon. So a big win for Brandywine, who looks really good right now, has a week off before they take on DMA. So it'd be interesting to see how they process that off week. For Newark, William Teal hit Keon Black for the Jackets' only score. John Cuffey led the defense with 6 tackles and 2 fumble recoveries. And we'll talk again about their game coming up next week against Newark Charter when we talk about our games to watch.
All right, next up we have Seaford defeating Colonel Richardson, a school out of Maryland, 21-18. The Blue Jays had a defensive stand to end the game. There were 4 plays from the 7-yard line that they had to stop with 20 seconds to go. So just a great effort by Coach Phillips' teams. For Seaford, quarterback Vince Evans threw to Caleb Thompson for their first score, and then Brendan West and Everett Burton rushed for the other 2 touchdowns. Luke Metzler converted all 3 of his PAT kicks. Seaford is now 2-1, and they're going to head up to Christiana for what will be a Saturday morning game this week. And so, Marty, you have another one of those situations like Delmar going up to Wilmington Friends on a Saturday morning. Seaford's the next farthest place you can go in the state of Delaware, coming up to Christiana. So it will be a good challenge for Coach Phillips to try to get his team on a roll. They would love to come out of that 3-1 heading into the meat of their schedule.
Then we move on to Concord 46, early college, high school, nothing. This was a blowout, probably conceivable that it was going to be a blowout from the start. Concord, this is interesting. I looked this up. This is their first 2-0 start since 2016.
Wow.
And to show how far things have changed, Concord, which is now playing at the 1A level, Concord finished that season in 2016 by losing to Sally's in the semifinals of the state tournament. So things have changed a bit. Tavani Braxton has had a great start for them, 3 touchdowns. Declan McNulty had a rushing and a passing touchdown. They're a team that they look good so far. And I said before, Larry Jacobs kind of provides, the AD provides kind of play-by-play during the game and on Twitter. So great to see Concord get off to a good start. They're a team that has really struggled in years past. But again, first 2-0 start since 2016, so you never know.
Yeah, no, it's funny. Yeah, you flash back, the George Kasanovich era when they were a top D1 team.
Yes.
And, I remember when I first started getting in the broadcast business, they had that family of players, and I never can remember
the Roberts family.
The Roberts family. And everybody said, hey, this is going to be the era. And we're talking about like a 5 or 6 year span. There was a Roberts player. I think all 3 of them went on to play in college.
They did.
And they just never got over the hump. And, I remember doing a couple Saturday morning games back then and thinking, man, this is going to be special. And it just never got there for whatever reason. But anyway, all right. So Indian River playing their second game against 2A opponents in 2A new this year. They did play Seaford. I just double checked the schedule, and that was their 1A opponent. And sometimes, Marty, not to defend, but we talked about these schools who play a couple teams down, especially when they first move up. A, it could be rivalries. B, it could be just trying to fill your schedule against decent teams, and so it's not a negative when we say they play down necessarily. But Indian River came away with a 43-8 win. So Rod Milstead, the head coach from Milford, the former Del State coach, still looking for his first win. For Indian River, Davon Handy rushed for 130 yards and 3 touchdowns. Darnell Stokes gained 69 yards on just 3 carries and scored twice. Jair Turnage returned a fumble for a touchdown to cap the scoring for the Indians. They're now 3-0, and as we mentioned, they're going to head up to Conrad, and so going to be a good challenge for Conrad. That is obviously playing a 1A team. For Indian River, that was their 12th straight win, so dating back to last year when they were the state champions in 1A. For Milford, Raleigh Rankin had the lone touchdown on a pass from Caden Jarrett, and Greg Lockett rushed for the 2-point conversion. They are 0-2. And they're going to head to Woodbridge, and Woodbridge is going to be hungry for a win. So that's going to be a tough one for Milford there.
Our next game, we move to Delcastle and Dickinson. Delcastle takes this one 44-0. This was great to see because not for Dickinson, obviously, but for Delcastle and Coach Kerry Galloway. He's been a fan of the show for a long time. I got a text from him last night that he and his wife couldn't wait to hear what we said about Delcastle on the show. It's great to see them in the win column. I know you and I were both happy that they moved down to 1A because for a program like Delcastle, they need to take a breath. They're going up against all these heavies and play guys at their own level. This was their first in-state game. They lost 41-0 to Academy Park last week. They came out with a tremendous defensive effort yesterday. 5 different players scored touchdowns. Ramir Berry, Jerry Delbridge, Nari Felder, Adrian Gorsahab, and Keith Ruley all scored the touchdown. And the quarterback, Adrian Gorsahab, Kerry Galloway pointed out that he did a great job running the offense. So it's good to see Delcastle and a good guy like Coach Galloway, who
Yep.
has been there for a long time and has worked under some adverse conditions in that
Yes.
program. And I'm hoping that at the 1A level, they can start to rebuild, get some confidence, get some more student participation in this
Yep.
program. But this was a great start for them. So Delcastle goes to 1-1. They're going to host Concord, which is now a much tougher task than it looked when the season started. I think
Mhm.
you have a Concord team that's 2-0 coming in. Dickinson 0-3. They'll be at Polytech. They'll be 0-4. But it's going to be a long season for Dickinson. There's a couple teams you and I talked about. It's tough to find a win on the schedule. Dickinson's got a couple opportunities next week. Probably will not be one of those. They play a really hot Polytech team.
All righty, so let me tell you about Mary Kate Johnston. If you're looking to buy or sell your house, Mary Kate Johnston with Remax Associates will help you do so as if, excuse me, was her own. An award-winning realtor with nearly 20 years of experience. She helped my wife and I sell our old house and purchase the one we've been in for nearly 20 years and helped us every single step of the way. We've since recommended her to dozens of friends who in turn have recommended her to their friends. Whether it's a first home, an upsize, downsize, an aging parent, or one of your children, do yourself a favor and reach out to Mary Kate Johnston with Remax Associates and let her make sure that you get the best value possible, whether you're buying or selling or both. Her website is marykatej.remax.com. That's marykatej.remax.com. And there you can also check out her multiple five-star reviews on Zillow and read what others have said as well. All right, one of the biggest games I was looking forward to, in fact, I would have been there if I wasn't working elsewhere, Caravel Academy and St. George's. The first 3A game for Caravel Academy as a 3A team. They've played
Right.
3A teams in the past. They played Hodson last year and played others, but this is their first game, similar to University of Delaware. It was the
Yep.
first FBS game at Delaware Stadium when Delaware was actually an FBS team. Similar situation at Caravel Academy, and they pulled off the win 39-7. I I kind of expected Caravel to win. I'm not sure I expected it to turn into the blowout that it was. Josh Roy rushed
Exactly.
25 times for 227 yards and 5 touchdowns. So Josh Roy is on fire. And starting this season, like he ended last season, it's a second straight week. He's rushed for more than 200 yards. J.D. Devane was the 302 player of the game for his efforts on both sides of the ball. I think Glenn Frazier probably figured we're going to pick Roy every time we do this game. We got to pick somebody else. And not that J.D. Devane didn't deserve it.
Yes.
Obviously, he did. But if anybody's wondering, well, geez, how can Josh Roy not get it with 5 touchdowns? For St. George's, they're 2-1. They're off, and then they're going to host Appoquinimink. So they'll kind of have an opportunity to rest for a couple weeks, and then John Wilson will have them ready to go. Caravel Academy 2-0. They are also off, and then they're going to host Dover, a team that we still don't know a lot about. They lost to Appoquinimink. They had a win against an out-of-state team, and so and they were off this past week. So it'll be interesting to see how that Dover team is after their game this week.
And anybody who watched this game, by the way, the Caravel St. George's game, got to see or hear the treat, or maybe not treat, of Glenn Frazier and Pat Gariani singing "Celebration" by Kool and the Gang in the fourth quarter as they were killing time in this blowout. They always come up with something. I love listening to those guys because if a game gets out of hand, they come up with the funniest things. So always a great listen for Pat and Glenn. Our next one, we moved to DMA and Hodgson. And it's funny, my mom and I watched this game, and she was kind of in and out doing some things and came back in the third quarter. She's like, "Oh my God, is this still 6-0?" We're watching because Pat Henry, of course, is my cousin. He's one of the coaches for Hodgson. And this was a huge, huge win for Hodgson. It would have been a monster win for DMA, but Hodgson had to have this. They could not afford another loss to a 2A team.
Mm-hmm.
And this was 6-0 till I think about 3 minutes or so were left in the third quarter before they were able to get things together. Kevin Browning, a quarterback we heard a lot of good things about in the preseason. He got it done with his legs. He had a big 45-yard run to seal it for them. And, Hodgson gets the 2-point conversion, which, of course, is the difference. I don't know what their kicking situation is. I'm not sure what DMA's kicking situation is. But DMA was playing without starting quarterback Isaiah Muhammad. Backup Nick Driscoll did a really nice job leading the offense, hit Davier Jackson for their only TV. Dante Brooks had an interception to stop Hodgson inside the 10-yard line when it was 6-0. That allowed them to take the 6-0 halftime lead. K-Twan Saber scored the only TD for Hodgson, and Jaden Yancey rushed for the 2-point conversion. That was the difference. Kevin Browning, 92 yards on the ground as the quarterback. Nice defensive effort from both of these teams. This was one of those kinds of games where you couldn't tell whether the defenses were good or the offenses just couldn't get anything moving. So I'll be an optimist here and say both defenses did a really nice job. It was clear that, especially DMA, Nick Driscoll did a great job, but it's tough getting thrown in there against a 3A team. Mm-hmm. And they fought hard. And again, Matt Carey has this program playing really, really well. These 3A games bogged them down last year. Hopefully they don't again this year. That's their first loss. They're 2-1. They visit an Archmere team, of course, that's very good. Hodgson is 1-1. They will host Sussex Central in a really tough game at St. George's. So a great win for Hodgson as they head into their 3A schedule.
I picked up a couple stats from Coach Dave Collins. When he texted me after the game, I texted him to congratulate him. He's my neighbor. I've been full disclosure about that. He said we found a way to win with a young team. And so he's talked about that all season long, that they are young. I want to give a shout out to his son, Braden Collins, who led the team with 9 tackles. And Trey Brown had 8 tackles and 3 sacks. It was a defensive stop. I turned this game on when I got home. A defensive stop by Hodgson with under 2 minutes to play, and quarterback Kevin Browning's 45-yard run sealed it for the Silver Eagles. And so a good effort by Hodgson. Yes, you can say it's against a 2A team, but as you said, Marty, this is a win Hodgson had to have, and we talked about that last week. All right, so we go on to an out-of-state game, Appoquinimink against George Washington. Appo coming off the Dover win in their opener. Quarterback Desai Drummond threw for over 250 yards and 3 touchdowns. Those touchdown passes went to Don Monabell, Dylan Bacon, and Jasir Rogers. If you haven't seen the tape yet, Marty, Jasir Rogers hurdled somebody to get more yardage after the catch. And so Google that on YouTube. I'm sure you'll be able to find it. Antonio Harvey and Dylan Yancey scored on the ground, and Trey Carter had a 73-yard pick six. I talked to Timpson after the game, and he said our defensive effort was much better than it was against Dover, where I don't know how many missed tackles they had, but it was a lot. And so he was very proud of that. He said, our starters got the shutout. The touchdown was scored after they put the backups in. So a nice win by Appoquinimink. They're 2-0. They're going to host Howard, Marty. And that's going to be a big game Friday night. I'm not going to be there. I've got a wedding to go to, so I won't be at the game like I normally would be. But I wish I was, because that is going to be a good game, because Coach Dan Ritter's team is coming off a week off. He's had 2 weeks to prepare. They've got game film against an opponent who was tough in Dover, and now additional game film against an opponent that was a different game film. And that's, so he's got 2 different things to watch to get them ready to go. And so it's going to be a big game for Appoquinimink. Should be a nice crowd there at the Jaguar Stadium.
It should. And just a real quick note, the great history week for Delaware, as we had teams play George Washington and Colonel Richardson. I had to look up who Colonel Richardson was for my own benefit, but we'll talk about that another time. Our next game is Howard and McCain. And as you said, Howard is primed right now, 44-0. Again, McCain is not at Howard's level, so this was very expected. 6 different players scored for Howard. Willie Williams' 65-yard kickoff return TV was the first score, and it turns out the deciding score. So a nice little warm up for Howard as they move on to take on Appoquinimink. So Dan Ritter's team, boy, this is, you look at their win over Hodgson, and then Hodgson comes back and beats DMA in a close one. This should be an interesting game, but Dan Ritter's squad looks really good right now.
Well, and as we've talked about, 2A, probably the toughest of all of the classes. But, Howard, if they come in and beat Appoquinimink, I don't care what the score is, you got to start talking about them being the Caravel of 2A right now. Yeah. I know it's early in the season, but those would be 2 legitimate wins. But they got to win the game first.
Real quick, I wanted to say too, when you were talking about Caravel, Josh Roy, and these guys probably don't even know who this is, but he reminds me so much of Earl Campbell. He runs kind of upright, and guys just sort of grab onto him and just fly off. It's just amazing to watch this kid. He looks like a man among boys when he's carrying the ball through the middle. It's just amazing how he sheds tacklers. I love watching the kid play. And as you said, we could probably name him player of the week like 9 out of the 10 weeks if Caravel wins. By the way, McCain 1-1. They go to Red Lion, which is coming off a big win, but that's a really tough game for McCain.
And Josh Roy weighs about a half of what Earl Campbell
Yes.
weighed, if not more. So, all right, Diamond Hill Incorporated has been a sponsor of the podcast from the start several years ago. For more than 20 years, they have been serving all of Delaware and the surrounding areas in all things construction, from commercial concrete and site development to residential projects. They have you covered. Email info@diamondhillinc.com. That's info@diamondhillinc.com. All right, our next game, Middletown and Good Counsel, another very tough game for Middletown High School. They lose 31-13. Their touchdowns came off a kick return and a pass. They're 0-3, which, you know what? They probably expected to be at this point, but let's say they've got to be the most battle-tested team in the state of Delaware. They have this week off, and then they're going to host, or they're going to play their first Delaware opponent, and they are going to host it, and that will be the Smyrna Eagles, coming off a nice win we'll talk about in a second. The other news I have, Marty, is sitting behind me at the Delaware game yesterday was a UD commit from Good Counsel, a tight end, Rowan Walsh. Sat in front of his family, just a very, very polite young man, as you would expect. And so it was nice talking to him a little bit. Going to come in and play tight end. He's built like a tight end. I didn't ask him for his exact dimensions, but he is built like a tight end. Trust me. And just a very polite kid. So we got another good kid and a good player, if he's playing at Good Counsel, coming into the game for the University of Delaware. So that'll be exciting. I was happy to meet him and happy to chat with him about his excitement to come in.
Yeah, Good Counsel, by the way, a top 40 national team, maybe the strongest team that Middletown has played. And just real quickly to piggyback off that game, of course, I had to go down the rabbit hole because I needed to know when Middletown last started 0-3. And as best I can figure, it was 1983 when they went 0-10. 1984, they went 1-9, but I think the win came within the first three games. So it's been a while for Middletown. That'll lead into our trivia question later on. But yeah, Middletown is going to be, thankfully, they get off that schedule and they get into their schedule now. And of course, their first game is against Smyrna, which is not going to be an easy one. It's funny too, because now any team that beats Middletown, the max you can get is one bonus point, because it will be their fourth loss. And the best they'd be able to give anybody is one bonus point. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out once we get to the playoff situation.
And by the way, Middletown could care less about other teams.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Middletown's like, if they're the eighth seed, they don't care. They know they got to go out and beat everybody anyway. Our next game is Odessa and Glasgow. Odessa takes this one 21-8. Glasgow, again, a good showing. Didn't get any information from Odessa. Glasgow, Jamar Smith scored a 10-yard run. Cam Sweeney caught the 2-point conversion. They're 0-3, although they played a tough schedule. They're going to play AI DuPont in their first Class 1A game of the season, so they're looking at a potential win there. For Odessa, this was another big win. This was... they had that first game against Indian River, which was just a disaster. Then they come back and nip Newark Charter, and now they beat Glasgow. So these kids are slowly starting to build up some confidence. Nick Tagati is back at the helm for Odessa now. So be interesting to see where they fit in the 2A mix. It's a school that you and I have talked about is going to be 3A at some point. They're at Tatnall next week, so an interesting game there. Tatnall's going to be hungry for a win. Glasgow, again, they host AI, which should be a win for Glasgow if they can keep things together.
I talked to Glasgow head coach Ricky Brown after the game. He said his team is playing very physical through this 2A schedule. He said, but we had 12 turnovers in 3 games, and you got to clean that up. And he said, you know what, we'll be ready for district play, and that'll be one of the benefits of being 0-3 against top competition in 2A. All right, next game, Caesar Rodney picks up its third win, which equals last year's win total in a 37-0 win over Lady of Mount Carmel. I couldn't find any stats from anybody. It's not a game Del State News was going to cover because it was out of state, that kind of thing. So, but anyway, congratulations to Caesar Rodney on their third straight win. They're off, and then they're going to play at William Penn. And, they've gone back and forth with William Penn the last couple years. I don't know what the exact records are, but I know the games have been close. And I think Caesar Rodney pulled one off one year. And, so that's one of those games that both teams are going to come into thinking we should win this game, and we might have to win this game to get into the playoffs when it's all said and done.
And by the way, the next week will be Quinn DeVere's first game as the quarterback for Caesar Rodney. So it'll be interesting to see how he meshes with that offense. I had originally written this down incorrectly as Lady of Mount Caramel. And of course, I couldn't get that off my mind. I'm thinking, wow, Mount Caramel sounds really good. You know, I love caramel. So is that, but big win for Caesar Rodney. Our next game, Smyrna hosted Frederick out of Maryland. And Frederick was good. They put up a heck of a fight, but Smyrna is on a roll right now. Drew Marks, 18 of 21 passes for 288 yards. If you look at Drew Marks' Twitter feed, it says it was over 300. I'll give him the benefit of the doubt, and we'll call it even 300 for him. He also rushed 9 times for 41 yards and a touchdown. Kamaj Kearney rushed for 2 TDs. But more importantly, I think for Smyrna, 4 for 4 on 2-point conversions. They were 5 for 5 on 2-point conversions for the game. They are now 10 of 11 for 2-point conversions on this season. Kearney has 7. It's almost a harken back to the era where Will Knight was back there, because last year they really struggled in 2-point conversions, and we said, my God, please get a soccer player, somebody on standby. This year they haven't needed it, and of course it equals almost another touchdown if they're doing it the way they are now. So a great showing for Smyrna. They are again an out-of-state team, Cardinal O'Hara, which is their I think their 3rd straight out-of-state game. So we won't really get to see we won't learn anything new about Smyrna until they get back into district play in Delaware. But a good win for Smyrna.
All right, if you're looking to improve your golf game or maybe start playing golf for the first time or somewhere in between, check out John Mattis, a PGA, teaching professional at St. Anne's Golf Academy, and he is part owner of St. Anne's Golf Course. He's been working with my son and a little bit with me. I need a lot more help than my son does. This is not a paid commercial advertisement. I'm doing this as a favor because I've been around Delaware a while. When I find something good, I like to share it with other people. I know a lot of people play golf, and so John Mattis at St. Anne's Golf Academy. Feel free to reach out to me. I'd be happy to give you his contact information. We've had a wonderful experience with him. I can't imagine that you wouldn't as well. So again, that's John Mattis of St. Anne's Golf Academy. All right, Sussex Central and Woodbridge. Woodbridge coming off that 1-point win against Wilmington Friends, 7-6. So certainly wasn't an offensive powerhouse type of game for them. They go into Sussex Central. People say it's one of the toughest places to play. Benny tells us that. Benny Mitchell.
The Castle.
So the Castle, they call it.
Yep.
And I've been to the Castle running Special Olympics events. I'm sure it's not the same atmosphere as on a Friday night under the lights. And Sussex Central comes away with a 40-6 win. They raced out to a big first half lead on 2 first-quarter touchdowns by Armand Floyd Satchel. And then in the second quarter, William Harmon rushed for 2 more touchdowns. Harmon finished with 103 yards and those 2 touchdowns. He also had a 37-yard reception. Sussex Central is 2-0. They're going to head to Hodson. And so going to be a tough road trip. And that game's actually at St. George's. So a little bit closer than Hodson. It'll save them about 15 minutes on the bus. Woodbridge, Evan Woodall scored on a blocked punt for the Blue Raiders. That was their only score. They're 1-1. They host Milford. So Milford's going to be hungry for their first win. And this is going to be a game that Marvin Dooley is going to tell Woodbridge, folks, we're at home against a team we should win. We better win type of thing.
Yeah, Woodbridge, it's kind of interesting to see them struggling so much offensively. We're not used to seeing that. In the last 2 weeks, they've scored 7 total points, but they're 1-1 out of it. So you couldn't really do better than that.
Right.
Our next game, we go to Tower Hill, St. Andrews. It went kind of expected. Tower Hill 38-8. Michael Waisco, the quarterback for Tower Hill, who's done a fantastic job. Pass and rush for TD. Christian Martin rushed for 2 scores. Tanner Gordon and Xavier Pabon also ran for scores. George Pedrick nailed a 35-yard field goal. Another kid that I hadn't heard of, George Pedrick, another kid kicking field goals from 30-plus yards. It's just amazing to me this year. For St. Andrews, Burke Donovan scored the only TD for the Saints. They're 1-1. They'll go to Charter, who's coming off a big loss to St. Elizabeth's. So Charter and St. Andrews, 2 teams that are looking to get it going to probably be battling for one of those 7-8 playoff spots come playoff time. Tower Hill is 2-0, and speaking of St. E, they go to St. E. This could be interesting. St. E has clearly shown that they're one of the top 2 or 3 teams in 1A, and Tower Hill always has a strong program. So it'll be interesting to see where both of these schools are. We'll get a better feel for both of them after this game.
All right, next we go to Red Lion, 53 to nothing winners over Delaware County Christian. So Coach Ken Anderson's team picks up their first win of the season. Quarterback Evan Buddinger's he was nearly perfect, 8 of 9 through the air for 195 yards. Defense and special teams were big for the Lions. Jamarian Ramsey had 2 pick-sixes. Zion Ramsey scooped up a fumble and returned it for a touchdown. And Raheem Spencer returned a kickoff 78 yards for a touchdown. So a great defensive and special team effort by Red Lion against obviously a team they just overpowered in Delaware County Christian. Red Lion 1-2. They're going to host McCain. And so will be a 2A versus 2A game there for that one.
Next, we move to St. Elizabeth against Charter. We just talked about that. St. Elizabeth won this going 34-13. It's a great showing for St. Elizabeth that they were coming off a blowout loss to Archmere last week. Isaiah Coleman, 3 rushing TDs, had a 2-point conversion, also recorded a safety. St. E led this game 26-8, 34-0 before Charter was able to put a couple scores on the board. So a great showing for St. E. Again, they host Tower Hill in a game that'll go a long way towards showing where St. Elizabeth is. Tower Hill's still a 2A program, so be interesting to see how St. E fares in this one.
All right, next up, we got 2 to go. Christiana 21, Mount Pleasant 13. Christiana a 1A team, Mount Pleasant a 2A team, very much struggling so far this season. All I have is Christian Pendleton for Christiana, had 2 rushing touchdowns, and Noah Johnson a pick-6. They're going to head down to Seaford, so a long bus ride on a Friday night for Christiana.
Our last game is Wilmington Friends and Delmar. Delmar took this one 29-14. This was a close game for a while. This was a huge win for Delmar. They've struggled at the start of the season a bit. Dason Bain, 182 yards, 3 touchdowns, 2 rushing TDs in the fourth were the difference. I believe this was 14-14, I believe, heading into the fourth quarter. So a nice win for Delmar. Friends, another tough loss after coming off that 7-6 loss to Woodbridge last week. So tough start for Friends to the season. They host Early College. They'll look to get well in that game. I don't have Delmar's next game written down here, but Dave Hearn always has his Delmar team ready to go. This is a nice win for them against Wilmington Friends.
I got the game for you, Marty. They're playing Milford. So
there you go. There you go. So nice.
Week off, and then Milford.
Oh, okay.
So,
okay.
Week off.
And Milford is really struggling. So it's going to be you're going to have Rod Milstead again, probably looking to pick up his first win again against a Delmar team that's finally starting to show they're starting to get rolling a little bit. And we know, as we said, Dave Hearn always has his team in the playoff mix, so we know they're going to be there.
Yep. All right. So that's your rapid rundown. Again, coaches help us out. Parents reach out. We're not going to promise, we like to confirm everything before we get it. But coaches, just send us a text or a direct message on either of our social media accounts and let us know what players are doing what after the game. I always say, hey, do it on the bus ride home if you're the away team, and just give us a shout out so we can get as many people in there as well. All right. It's time for our helmet stickers. Amy Hoff has a special talent designing graphics or creating videos for any sport or other activity. And so we asked her to help us design the perfect helmet sticker for our helmet sticker winners, and we love what she came up with. One of my other favorite designs she did was for my son when he committed to play basketball at DeSales University, and I would highly suggest, if you have a graphic that you need to promote your child's significant achievements, or maybe just want one to talk about them, that you consider her. And the great thing is you can take that graphic and you can make posters out of it, you can make photos out of it, you can do a lot of different things with it that, unless you are a graphic artist, trust me, it's not going to be as good as what she can do. Amy Hoff of Hoff Productions, from concept to creation, multimedia designs for every occasion. Reach out to her at Hoff, that's 2 F's, productionsde@gmail.com, or you can reach out to us and we'd be happy to connect you with Amy Hoff. All right. Helmet stickers, again, we always preface it by saying, players, please don't put them on your helmet because it is illegal, because you're not promoting our podcast, which is what it would seem like. As much as we would love to have them on your helmets, please do not put them on your helmets. What I do is I send them to your head coach at the school, and hopefully, and assuming they will get them to you. We had them done in a size that is perfect to put on the back of your tablet, even your cell phone if you don't have a sticker there already. And so we hope that you'll proudly don the helmet stickers. I'm going to start, Marty, with Caravel's running back Josh Roy. We've talked about quickly before, 25 carries, 227 yards, 5 touchdowns against a Class 3A team, as Caravel is, St. George's. And folks, sometimes when we consider these helmet stickers, we look at not only the statistics, obviously, but the opponent.
Yep.
And, we can't give out 30 helmet stickers every week. We'd run out of stickers halfway through the season. And so, if somebody has a huge game, but it's a 3A team against a 2A team, we don't put as much weight on that as we do a Josh Roy 5 touchdowns
Yes.
against another 3A team. So Josh
Yep.
Roy, my first helmet sticker.
My first one goes to Archmere's Ryan Hagenberg in a losing effort against St. Mark's yesterday. 7 carries, 112 yards, 2 touchdowns, 3 catches, 85 yards, and a touchdown. Also had a 90-yard interception return for a touchdown. Scored all 4 of the TDs for Archmere yesterday, and had a nice catch at on the last drive where they were attempting to win the game after Matteo Bracalente's field goal. Wasn't successful, but a huge game. So congratulations, Ryan Hagensberg, my first helmet sticker.
All right, next, Smyrna quarterback Drew Marks in that big win over Frederica. He was 18 of 21 for 300-ish yards, as Marty said, and 2 touchdowns. He also had 9 carries for 41 yards and 1 touchdown. We're not sure where Frederica would fall into the class system in Delaware, but I can guarantee it would either be a high 2A team or probably a 3A team. So a great effort, a great game by Smyrna quarterback Drew Marks.
And real quick, my first one was Ryan Hagenberg. I think I had an S in there somewhere, but Ryan Hagenberg was my helmet sticker. Sussex Central running back William Harmon is my next one. 7 carries, 103 yards, 2 touchdowns in their blowout win over Woodbridge. Harmon is one of those guys who's there every week carrying the ball in that offense and usually getting the tough yards up the middle. So Will Harmon is my second helmet sticker.
All right, my third and final one is Newark Charter quarterback Chase Kennedy. On the game, in their overtime win against Tatnall, he was 17 of 31 for 177 yards and 2 touchdowns. He also had the 6-yard touchdown run on 4th down and the 2-point conversion that lifted Newark Charter School over Tatnall in overtime. So Newark Charter School quarterback Chase Kennedy, my final helmet sticker.
I'm going to give 2 more because we forgot someone that definitely deserves a helmet sticker. But I'm going to go Delcastle senior running back Ramir Berry, 18 carries, 128 yards, and a touchdown in Delcastle's first win over in their 1A, their first year in 1A. And the second one, and it's funny, you and I talked about this yesterday, and then neither one of us put them on here. We got to give one to Matteo Bracalenti for coming in and hitting the 40-yard field goal to win the game under pressure. It's just, you got to reward that. And you and I have been huge proponents of the kickers in the state. So my last one will go to Matteo Bracalente.
And I'll actually add one more back because I thought you had this on your list, Marty. Maybe you didn't. But Delmar's Dason Bain, 4 touchdowns against Wilmington Friends.
I did, and I forgot.
another very plus, a 2A versus the 2A team.
Yes.
And 4 touchdowns against Wilmington Friends. I couldn't find the yardage on it, but it doesn't matter. You score 4 touchdowns against what's going to be a pretty, which could be a playoff team, Wilmington Friends. You deserve it. So that's our helmet stickers. Again, we'll send them to your head coaches. They'll give them to you. Please don't put them on your helmet. Put them on your tablet, somewhere else where you can proudly display them. And thank you again to Amy Hoff of Hoff Productions for the design of the helmet sticker. All right, it's now time for our Promotion Zone Player of the Week. Whatever, wherever, and however you want to promote your organization, product, or anything else, Promotion Zone can help you make the right decisions based on your needs and your budget. Whether it's apparel, pens, coffee mugs, or something out of the ordinary, Promotion Zone is your one-stop shop for all your branding needs. They're celebrating their 16th year in business. They're located right here in Delaware. So if you're working with people who understand the value of hometown business relationships, check them out on their website at promotionzone.biz, promotionzone.biz, B-I-Z. They're also on Facebook at PromotionZoneDE. Prefer to call them 302-832-8565 or reach out to us. We're happy to give you their contact information. Promotion Zone, the swag folks since 2009 for all your branding and apparel needs. And our Player of the Week will receive a T-shirt from Promotion Zone. Marty, I'm going to let you announce this week's, Promotion Zone Player of the Week.
Well, for this week's Player of the Week, we're going down south to Lake Forest. Lake Forest quarterback Jack Parson, who didn't do anything throwing the football. It didn't matter. He carried the ball 4 times for 157 yards and 2 touchdowns, had some amazing runs, including 2 huge runs that resulted in a touchdown and one that resulted score came later. He put the game away by using his legs as well. He did a great job directing the offense all day. To not throw more than one pass, which there's a question whether it was none or one, but against a team like Cape Henlopen to just run the ball. And again, 416 yards on the ground. You need a guy in command. That offense is Freddie Johnson's is clicking right now, and the reason is Jack Parson, and he is our promotion zone player of the week.
All right, Jack, we'll get a T-shirt out to you. How I do that, folks, is I reach out to the player or the coach. I need a size and then where to send it. So Jack Parson, keep a heads up. We'll get that to you. All right, it's time for our now week 3 games to watch. Hard to believe it's week 3, which means it's the 4th week of the Delaware high school season. I'm going to start, Marty. Howard at Appo. 2-0 teams. They each have one legitimate win, Howard over Hodson and Appoquinimink over Dover, and not to take anything away from the other opponents. 2 excellent quarterbacks, sophomore Jamison Bryant and senior Desai Drummond. And so, Jamison Bryant, he popped up on the scene last year as a freshman and just wowed everybody.
Yep.
He's only gotten better, apparently. And senior Desai Drummond, of course, last year's Gatorade Player of the Year, first team All-State in there. So Howard at Appo, Friday night at 7 o'clock.
For my first, I'm going to go downstate again to Dover. Dover High School will be hosting Lake Forest. This will be interesting. Dover has struggled a little bit to start, but again, they're 1-1. Rudy Simonetti is back as the head coach. He's only been there for about 8 weeks or so. So he's still kind of getting to mesh with these kids and getting them to mesh in his system. Lake Forest, of course, is on a roll right now, and they'll be looking for their second straight 3A win in a row. This will be a really good game on a Friday night.
All right, I'm going to go to Archmere, where DMA is going to play the Auks. DMA has a quality win against Woodbridge, which is always a solid team, and they almost beat a Class 3A team in Hodson this past week. Archmere has one win against the 1A St. E's team, so this is a chance for Archmere to kind of prove they belong in that playoff talk. Marty, to me, we've already talked about Howard potentially being the former Caravel in 2A. Mm-hmm. If DMA is able to go into Archmere and beat them solidly, I'm going to have DMA in that same conversation next week at this time.
Yeah, I'd be curious to see if Isaiah Muhammad is ready to go for that game. He's a key player for DMA. For my next one, I'm going to go down to the 1A level, and I'm going to go Del Castle and Concord on Saturday morning at 11 o'clock at Del Castle. Some media outlets thought that Del Castle was going to be a player in 1A this year. They may be. They came off the big 44-0 win over Dickinson. Concord is 2-0. Again, the first time since 2016. That program looks to be on the upswing a bit, so I think we'll get a better feel for both of these programs after that game on Saturday morning.
All right, I've got at least one more, maybe 2, depending on what your other one is, if you have one. And the one I have is Newark Charter at Newark High School. It's a Saturday morning game at 11:30. And the big question is there going to be more red and blue in the stands or yellow and black? Because years ago, in the Butch Simpson era, you wouldn't have been able to get a ticket if you were from Newark Charter, because that place would have been packed for a game like this. These schools are about 3 miles apart. Not sure how the turnout's going to be for the Yellow Jackets. I'm pretty confident that it'll be big for Newark Charter. One thing I think that might be good for the Yellow Jackets is that it's not a Friday night game, because they don't have lights at Newark.
Yep.
Because the Newark Charter games at Newark Charter on the Friday night that they've had so far have been unbelievable. And I would think that exact same crowd would go to Newark High School. So what Yellow Jackets fans can hope is that some of these Newark Charter people have plans on Saturday that they wouldn't have had on a Friday night. But it should be a tremendous game. Tyron Rice will have the Yellow Jackets ready to play.
Yep.
This is going to be a case of a huge difference in roster size, probably almost double the amount at Newark Charter compared to the Yellow Jackets. Everything I've heard from both teams is everybody's healthy going into it. So that's a good thing, especially for the Newark Yellow Jackets. So Newark Charter at Newark High School Saturday. Check it if you're going, but I believe it's an 11:30 a.m. kickoff there.
One more thing I wanted to note here was I went back in the archives a bit because we were talking about attendance at Newark High School, and there was a Kevin Tressolini article from the 80s, and it referenced, I think they were playing Salesianum at Newark, and it referenced a standing room only crowd of around 2,000 people. So they used to really draw them in there.
It was a place to be on Friday night.
It would really be cool if they could pack this in, although it's a little bit different. It is 11 a.m. start on Saturday morning. For my last one, Hodgson and Sussex Central. You did not say Hodgson Sussex Central yet, did you?
I did not.
Okay. This will give us a better feel for both of these programs. Again, Sussex Central looks really good right now. Hodgson coming off the big win over DMA where they needed that defensive stand at the end. So we're going to get a better feel for both of these guys going forward. Hodgson is going to be one of those playoff bubble teams again, and Sussex Central still looks to be one of those teams that's trying to break into the top 3-4. So we'll see how this goes.
All right, so you didn't pick my fourth game, so I'll go ahead and say it. St. Mark's at William Penn. Huge game for William Penn. 0-2. Can't afford to lose to a 2A team come playoff time. Big game for St. Mark's and Bill DiNardo coming off that win. And how do they respond after getting a solid win up there at Archmere? And that game is on a Saturday at 1 o'clock. William Penn, if you haven't been to a 1 o'clock game in William Penn on a Saturday in Newcastle, it's nice. I mean, it's a good time. It's not packed, not sold out. You're not going to have to worry about that. But it is a decent crowd that they draw there. All right, who's live streaming and broadcasting games? Let's start with 302 Sports. Glenn Frazier will have Howard at Appoquinimink on Friday night. Benny Mitchell will have Milford at Woodbridge also on Friday night. And DEL will have the Hodson Sussex Central game. And Delmarva Sports Network, and again, Delmarva is a paid subscription service. Cambridge, South Dorchester at Laurel. Laurel fans be interested in that probably. And then Lake Forest at Dover. So I might be tuning in to DSN to watch that Lake at Dover game because that should be a good one as well. So those are your games to watch, which will be week 4, did we decide? No, week 3. Fourth week of the season. Yep. Still got to do away with week 0.
Real quick, I just want to say, too, 302 Sports went to their new platform this week, and I watched 2 games on there, and platform worked extremely well. I thought their coverage was outstanding. So I believe it's play.302sports.com because I saw some people had sent me notes saying, why can't I find this on YouTube anymore? Of course, they're not everybody's on Twitter, which is where Nick was publicizing that stuff. So if you're looking for the 302 games, they're at 302 .playsports.com, I believe, and that will get you to the games, and you can sign up to get the games.
Yeah, and congratulations to Nick Halliday. He's been working hard on that, especially early in the season to get that pulled off. So, all right, it's now time for the Marticelli Restaurant Group trivia question. Marticelli Restaurant Group has 3 restaurants: Klondike Kate's, Chesapeake Inn, and La Casa Pasta. And the winner of the trivia contest gets a $50 gift card good for any of those 3 places. You can enjoy signature crab cakes and other fresh seafood at Chesapeake Inn, homemade pastas and seafood specialties at La Casa Pasta, or Klondike Kate's famous cheesesteak, egg rolls, and nachos. If you don't live up here in Newcastle County, which is where these restaurants are, it's worth the trip, trust me, on a Saturday to go to any of these 3 places. I say it all the time. They're go-to places for my wife and I. There's not many times we go out to dinner that one of those 3 places isn't it. We can't thank the Marticelli Group enough for supporting our podcast and, in turn, supporting high school football here in Delaware. Marty, the floor is yours.
Last week's question was a simple one. We were talking about Deshaun Jackson's first win as head coach at Del State, which they now got their second win yesterday. They're now 2-1, and I don't think that experiment could be going any better right now for Delaware State. So the question was, how many Pro Bowls did Deshaun Jackson appear in as an NFL player? The answer was 3. We had 19 correct answers. Our winner is Chuck Groves, which is our buddy from On the Hill, the Twitter site that always has great information about St. Mark's. He and his brother Patrick provide the right answer just about every week since we've been doing the trivia question. Those guys are our encyclopedia of knowledge when it comes to high school football in Delaware. For this week, I had to get into Middletown being 0-3, and it drove me crazy. And I thought, I got to know when the last time they started 0-3 is. It's difficult because you have to end up going back into the News Journal archives, because going back to 2007, which is the last time Websites for Sports, when it started, they had not had an 0-3 season. So as far as I can tell, I believe it was 1983. I mean, this is how far back I had to go for this. They went 0-10. And they were coming off, I believe, a 5-5 season. They hired a new coach. So the trivia question for this week is, who was the coach in 1983 when Middletown went 0-10? It seems like forever ago, because it was forever ago. Although, if you say 1983 to you and I, there's all these great memories, and we think, oh, it seems like just yesterday. Holy smokes, it was not yesterday.
A decade ago.
So the question again, who was the coach in 1983 of the Middletown Cavaliers when they dropped all 10 of their games? By the way, they only scored 13 points the entire season and were shut out 8 times. Wow. It was not good times at Middletown High School, and the coach did not last. past that season. To get the answer in, have it by Wednesday night to delhsfootball@gmail.com. That's the best way to send in your answers. 17 of the 19 people use that to get their answers to us. You can also send it to John or I on our Twitter pages, the DEL Delaware High School Football Twitter page or John's personal Twitter page. But the best way to do it is our email address. It's delhsfootball@gmail.com, and get that in by Wednesday night, and my mom will draw the winner.
All right, that's going to do it for this week's episode. Special thanks to our sponsors, the Marticelli Restaurant Group, Promotions owned the Swag folks since 2009, Diamond Hill Incorporated, commercial concrete site development and residential projects, Mary Kate Johnston of the Remax Associates Real Estate, Dan Rigby, author of The Win the Day Planner, Andre L. Photography, excellence from every angle, Amy Hoff of Hoff Productions, from concept to creation, multimedia designs for every occasion, and designer of our new podcast logo. And of course, the presenting sponsor of the podcast, websitesforsports.com. If you're a sports player, parent, or fan, it's the only website with a schedule of every high school and middle school team, stats, and more. Don't forget to follow us on X at DELHS Football and Facebook at the DELHS Football Pod. And please like and share our podcast to help us spread the word about high school football. Until next time, for Marty Sheehan, I'm John Buzby. Have a great sports week.